Absolutely. Thank you for all the hard work, guys.
What is up, everybody? Alex Comstock here with WhitetailDNA, and on today's video, I'm out. It's first week of August, out here with me and Luke. We're getting up some trail cameras on some public land here in Minnesota. But it's got me thinking about early season. And in this video, I want to cover my 5 early season hunting tips as we're near in September. We're headed out here to North Dakota in a few weeks to get everything ready. And I'll be bringing you all that prep work and everything in early season. But with that thought, I want to talk about 5 early season hunting tips. And jump in, number 1, we're going to talk about, really want to understand how deer or how a buck moves from bed to food. So it's pretty cliche, but it really is the most important thing in the summer is food sources and bedding. And if you can understand how a buck moves from his bed to his food source, it's going to set you up for such better success opposed to just like sitting up on the corner of a bean field or setting up on the corner of a food plot. You know, everyone talks about how food is king, and food is king for sure, but you want to know where a deer is bedding or have an idea, because that way if you can kind of, if you can guess in your head how a buck is moving from point A to point B, you're gonna be able to set up for the wind, for everything much better, and it's gonna set you up for better success. Tip number 2 is gonna be do your scouting ahead of time. So for instance, we'll be heading out to North Dakota, like I mentioned, here in a couple of weeks, and we're gonna be spending, 3 full days scouting our asses off, and we'll be headed back out there for opening week, which would be 13, 14 days later. But we're gonna be doing all of our scouting ahead of time and really trying to hone in on how bucks are moving, how deer are moving, getting up a bunch of trail cameras, doing some glassing, all that stuff. So if you're able to scout ahead of time, I highly recommend doing as much scouting specifically for opening week or for early season as you can. Not just general scouting, but spring scouting is awesome for the fall, all that good stuff. But if you're gonna be hunting early season, you wanna do that scouting, I think, as late in the summer as possible, because hopefully you're trying to find a buck on a pattern that you can apply to hunting early and hopefully, pretty much get on that buck. All right, as Luke's getting up with his trail camera, I'm gonna talk about tip number 3, which is evening hunting is your safest bet. Now, we'll get into more of the morning stuff here in the next tip, but as it pertains to early season, your best odds of not, I guess your best odds of not messing shit up, I guess, is to be hunting in the evenings. When we go to North Dakota, we hardly hunt mornings, though, like I said, I will touch you a little bit more on that. But evenings is your best bet. Deer are already in their bed. You can sneak into your spot, get set up, probably on the edge of a food source, on the inside of a timber. When we're in North Dakota, sometimes it's just open fields, but you can get set up and ready and have them come to you, opposed to in the morning, they're already out in the fields. It can be much more difficult to get set up. And evening hunting is just honestly gonna be your best bet for that very, very early season type of hunting. So with that, tip number 4 is gonna be how to pull off a morning hunt. Now, the reason, I'm gonna pretty much contradict myself here, but my last buck that I killed the first week of season was in the morning in North Dakota. In order to hunt a morning spot though, you have to have just the right type of setup. So in that case, it was actually a big chunk of timber that deer primarily bedded in. And out in North Dakota, there's just not a ton of timber, right? Depending where you hunt, every situation is gonna be different, but out there, not a ton of timber. And in this particular little area, they use this chunk of timber as primary bedding. And so we were able to slip in on pretty much on the back side of this timber super early. I mean, and that morning, I think I had Caleb with me filming. I think we were out of bed at 2:45, 3 in the morning. I mean, it was crazy early. We slipped in as the deer were on, the opposite side of the timber out in the field. We were able to slip in on the back side, before any deer came back to bed, get set up. We had the right wind where, the deer were primarily coming to the north of us. Wind was coming out of that way, a cold front, so deer were gonna be staying out in the fields longer. And we were in our stand, I wanna say an hour and a half before first light. I mean, it was early, and it's really the only way you can pull off a morning hunt, in my opinion, that early in the season, unless you've got some type of special circumstances or you've been doing some type of scouting on a spot where you can get it in before a buck's gonna come back to bed. But in a lot of situations, bucks are coming to bed before the sun even comes up, and you're just gonna screw yourself trying to hunt them in the morning. But you can pull it off, it just needs to be the right type of setup. My fifth and final tip for early season hunting is gonna be historical data. So this typically only applies to, historical data can apply in two different ways. First one would be if you're hunting a certain buck. If you're hunting a certain buck and you've got a couple years of trail camera pictures of him, you know, you can use that information on what he was doing years prior to try to pretty much figure out what he's gonna do before he even does it. Or historical data can work as using historical data on a property. So let's just say you hunt somewhere in the Midwest and you've got, you know, agricultural fields on your property or near it, and deer do certain things when it's in beans and certain things when it's in corn. And typically that crop rotation is gonna rotate every other year. So if you're hunting a spot where you know deer do, you know, let's say X when it's in beans, Y when it's in corn, and say the bean years are a lot better because deer are feeding on your property, you can know like, hey, all right, this year my property's in beans. 2 years ago, here's what deer did when it was in beans. I'm gonna use that to my advantage and try to make a play on these deer, and, you know, use that information to, you know, influence where you hang stands, trail cameras, all that good stuff. So the historical data can apply to properties as well as particular bucks, and I find that super helpful in a lot of different ways hunting early season. So those are 5 early season hunting tips. Quick little video here that I was just wanted to get out as I'm, you know, got early season pretty much on the brain as we're out here hanging trail cameras in the summer. We're gonna have a ton of video content coming. We're gonna be busting out more video than ever in the next 4 months. And it's gonna start here. We're headed to North Dakota. We're gonna be doing some summer archery stuff here. I'm gonna get filmed and get out. We're gonna be going back to North Dakota at the end of the month to hunt. And then from there, it's just balls to the walls. We'll be hunting all fall, and we got some cool things lined up. So appreciate you watching this video. Do me a huge favor, hit that like and subscribe button below, and I'll see you here on the next one.